I just want to take a moment. First, I know all of you. I love all of you. But to introduce myself, I'm Aaron Miller. I'm one of the rabbis at Washington Hebrew, and I'm so excited for tonight. Tonight we are joined by author, and author just is the tip of the iceberg. Author Tiffany Shlain. She is an Emmy-nominated filmmaker. She's the founder of the Webby Awards, which are a very big deal. My wife worked in advertising in the beginning of our relationship about 14 years ago, and she won a, well, she didn't. Her company won a Webby, and that was a
Nice.
huge deal. And that's you. That's incredible. And you are here to talk about a fantastic book, 24/6. I loved it, and I'm so glad that you were here to join. This book won the Marshall McLuhan Outstanding Book Award. Tiffany, you've also been a part of recently the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They premiered your one-woman spoken cinema performance, Dear Human. I know there's more about that on your website, which is also wonderful. And Tiffany lectures, she performs worldwide. Her focus is on the intersection between technology and humanity. You've won more awards than any of us can count, but some of the really special ones have been the Albert Einstein Foundation's Initiative Genius 100 Visions for the Future Award, and Mazel Tov on being one of NPR's lists of best commencement speeches. That's a very big deal, especially for a daughter who's going off to college. So you might have to do that again in a couple years.
I'll give the speech directly to her.
Exactly. Tiffany, during quarantine, you've developed a newsletter, Breakfast at Tiffanys. You host online talks all the time. You are hosting a Zoom challah bake with special guests from all over the world, and I'm just so glad that you were spending a few of your hours tonight with us at a Washington Hebrew congregation to talk about this fantastic book, 24/6, The Power of Unplugging One Day a Week. And so, Tiffany, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the book and share with us what we can glean from it.
Yeah, I grew up in, well, first of all, thank you for having me. That was such a warm Hamish welcome, and I'm so happy to be with your congregants. And I love DC, and I wish I was there in person, but maybe someday. Well, and I grew up as really a cultural Jew. The food, the wrestling with ideas, the humor. I went to high holiday services. I was bat mitzvahed, but we did not do Shabbat in my house. I mean, at all. It was really only until I met my husband, my first Jewish boyfriend, Ken Goldberg, who was a Jew from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And
Wow.
also blonde, blue-eyed Jew. My last name doesn't sound Jewish, so most people didn't know I wasn't. Actually, I don't live in a very Jewish area, so it's not like I was around a lot of Jews. And actually, I'll send you, Aaron, afterwards to share with your community, but I made this film with Ken called The Tribe that explores American Jewish identity through the history of the Barbie doll that, your congregants would enjoy it. But
terrific. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So anyways, so we were very involved in technology. I founded the Webby Awards. My husband's a professor of robotics. We love experimenting with the latest, newest thing. And both of our careers were steeped in it. But I would have to say that when the iPhone came out, it really changed the game. It came out in 2007, and suddenly the phone came with you everywhere, and you could be disturbed anywhere and distracted anywhere, entertained anywhere. You could be taken out of the moment anywhere. Whereas before, your laptop was like at home, you went out on a walk, you went out to a meal, and it wasn't with you. The whole world wasn't with you every second.
That's a great.
And I started, it really, because it was a distinguishing thing, because you used to leave your house and you really leave your house and you leave everyone behind and go do the thing you were doing. And then when it became portable, I just started to feel, it was exciting at first, but then I started feeling more and more distracted. And this was, mind you, a long time ago before everyone talking about addiction and digital detox and everything. But I just knew I did not like the way I was feeling. I felt like my brain had gotten hijacked and I was incredibly distracted all the time. And right about at that moment that I was really feeling the apex of distraction and not feeling good about the way I was living, my father, who I was incredibly close to, died of brain cancer, and my husband's and my daughter was born, and this all happened within days. And it was this very dramatic moment in my life where I just felt like the world was just shaking me by the shoulders and saying, focus on what matters. And at this point, I had married Ken. We had a 6-year-old daughter. We just had a new baby, and we would do Shabbat occasionally, but the Shabbat that we would do is we would have challah, we would light the candles and make a nice meal, and it totally ended from there.
Yeah.
I should also say the only people I ever knew that did a full day of Shabbat were the couple Orthodox Jews I had met in my life.
Yeah.
And I was very fascinated with it, but I feel like, a cultural Jew, very far on the other side, and felt like it really wasn't available to me. But
And would those Shabbat meals end? I mean, you set up a beautiful Shabbat meal, and would it end with just everybody dispersing to their phones?
I think it was just kind of went back to normal. Like we'd have a nice meal. Like there was a beautifulness in the lighting of the candles and having challah, and we'd have people over, a nice meal, and then it was over. And
Yeah.
certainly it didn't go a full day.
Sure.
And so my father just died, our daughter was born, and we were part of this Jewish group called Reboot, which I don't know, you probably know about it, Aaron, but it started a long time ago, and it was all about rethinking Jewish ideas in new ways. So we were having a ceremonial national day of unplugging for Shabbat. And it was just supposed to be like one day a year to kind of rethink what Shabbat means in the modern era. So this was like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And Ken and I did it after we had kind of just done like little partial Shabbats. And we turned off all the screens from Friday night to Saturday night with like 70 other people. And I felt this immediate oasis of calm and presence and appreciation. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And we've never stopped doing it every week for almost 11 years. And it's the best thing we've ever done in our lives. We take a full strict, and I say strict because it's not like strict, but we turn off all screens Friday night. We don't turn them on until Saturday night. Our daughters are now 17 and 11. It's everybody's favorite day of the week. We always have people over for Shabbat. So we make a beautiful meal. I do these Zoom holidays. We make challah. Now it's on my deck, but we have people over, and people know they're coming to our house. There's no phones. They're left at home or zipped up in their bag. The best conversation of the week. We have one conversation. We do the candles. We talk about the week. It's a beautiful meal. We laugh. I laugh most on Friday nights. It's just really amazing because I love to laugh, and I notice how much more I laugh on Fridays. I sleep the best on Friday nights, and then on Saturday I think the best. I'm so present for. It's like we feel like we turn off and there's so much stressful news right now. Just like you protect yourself against the world. Yeah. And I do a lot of reading, hanging. Then eventually the kids wake up. We go outside. We cook. We do nothing. We nap. We play music. We play guitar and ukulele. We do like all these things you never normally do because there's a screen right there. Yeah. And the longer we started doing it, the longer we did it, the more benefits I saw and the more mashugana everyone became with their screens. Because we were like early adopters. So by like year 3, 4, and no one could believe that we did it because we're not religious. I mean, I should really say, I love the rituals of Judaism, but I am not a religious Jew. And so I think people would always be like, wow, you do a full day of Shabbat, like as if, oh, you must be super religious. Mm-hmm. And what was fascinating to me is I actually think Shabbat is like the greatest gift of the Jews. It's the most beautiful idea. It's the 4th commandment, a day of rest. It's even above do not commit murder is take a day off. Yes. And I think that's so big.
Probably helps you not commit murder.
Exactly. That's what I think. I think if you take a full day off, you're not going to commit murder. You're not going to commit adultery. You're going to live a much better life. So the longer we did it, the more I got really into the reading about Shabbat. And again, all from a non-religious, like I filter it, like the ideas are incredible. Yeah. And then I looked into the neuroscience behind it because as a filmmaker, I always have my best ideas on Saturday. And I'm always writing my thoughts down. Always the big ones come on Saturday. I'm like, wow, when I turn off the outside world, why is it that my brain has the best ideas? And there's all this research on why. It's why you have your best ideas when you're in the shower or doing the dishes. It's like you're not getting any new input and you're letting your mind do the magic, which is make unusual connections. And then I just feel like as a family, it's the day that my kids will like spontaneously be like, I love you. I'm like, when does that happen? It's just like, we're so connected. And
well, especially you have teenagers. So like really, when does that happen?
Teenagers, she just said it the other day. And I was like, that doesn't happen during the week. It happens on Saturday. Cause it's like, there's room for the love and Ken, okay. So I should tell you that Ken grew up doing Shabbat, just the Friday night meal. Yeah. And I actually think like most Jews I know, Shabbat is the Friday night meal. But once I've understood that, no, the power of Shabbat is this full day of nothing,
Yeah.
nothingness, which is everythingness.
Yeah.
And he was a graduate student in Israel, and the whole country shuts down because the Orthodox Jews really control that. And so he was a single person living in Israel and thought it was fascinating. So he had kind of that taste of it. But I can tell you, as you know, a cultural Jew living today in our world that's on screen so much more because of the pandemic, that the practice has become 10 times more valuable since the pandemic, because
Yeah.
it's like the one day we can just rejuvenate and replenish and think and be. And
Be in
there's
touch
this,
with the tactile world.
oh, it's just like I'm so present for what's happening. And I'm not. The reason why I keep this notepad is because like we get lost in the screen. You don't know what time it is. You don't know where your body is. You don't know if you've gone to the bathroom or if you need to drink water, because you're just like merging with the screen. And I think that the one thing I'll tell you is, you haven't seen Social Dilemma. You should all see it. It's on Netflix. It really explains why we're all so addicted and how we're being manipulated. But the one thing I can say after doing it for almost 11 years now is that when you're on the internet, on your phone, on whatever, it is designed to keep you wanting more. You want the next stressful news headline, you want the next email, you want the next
Yeah.
notification, you want more, more, more. You can never, and it's designed that way, which the Social Dilemma shows. When I turn off the screens, it's such a quick switch of being grateful for what's right in front of me. I'm not hungry anymore for anything. I'm like, look at what I have, this bounty, the puppy, the family, the roof over my head, food. I just like suddenly become the most grateful, appreciative person versus the other state, which is like, I'm hungry. So it's like,
Yeah.
so anyway,
Yeah.
so I eventually, when I was kind of nearing 10 years of doing it, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to share this. It's ancient wisdom. It's free. It's simple. It's one of the best ways to live, and it's from Judaism. And it's I wanted to liberate it. I feel like, Jews aren't supposed to proselytize. It's so funny because now the book's been out for a year, and a lot of people have read it, and I've got so many people being like, I'm a lapsed Catholic and I do Shabbat now. And I'm
Yes.
like, but that's so exciting to me, because I think like yoga and meditation, these are these beautiful practices from different traditions that a lot of people do to bring balance into their lives. And if there's, like, I always love when people like Jewish humor or bagels or whatever, it makes me happy. And I feel like this idea of Shabbat, which is a beautiful, beautiful, elegant idea, I'm happy to share it and let people know that the power is in the whole day. It's not, the dinner's fabulous and
Exactly.
social and lovely and hamisha, but actually the power of Shabbat is the whole day
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
rest.
It's so interesting. One of the things that you bring up, and you're absolutely right, is um, Shabbat is free. And I say that, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I know people, and people too, who are investing so much of their time and also so much of their intensity in expensive gyms, expensive bikes these days, extreme vacations, or
Yeah.
extreme diets. And so I think, it's, and I'd love your thoughts on this. We're in an age where people are realizing that there are things we can do with ourselves, to move ourselves from where we are to where we would like to be, and we are sparing no expense,
Yeah.
except Shabbat, right? Except for this spiritual or self rejuvenation. With the language that you want to use is really up to you.
Mhm.
But why are people hesitant to this idea of a tech Shabbat when it is free, when it doesn't ask anything of you?
I think it's, I think people have a lot of fear of turning off the phone. And I've thought about that a lot, because every great wisdom practice and every religion or everything is about, you need stillness. You need to quiet the noise to hear inner wisdom. And the phone keeps you from ever having to deal with your own thoughts, because you can always just pick up the phone, get the news, get entertained, get distracted. You never actually have to deal with what you're really feeling or what you're really thinking. And I think people imbue so much power in the phone, but when you turn it off and you realize how powerful it is to just think a thought without the phone, we've just forgotten how. But I love it on Saturdays. Like, somebody in my family will have a question, and we're like, I guess we're going to just have to ponder that question. And it's such a great thing to teach your kids. Like, just think about it. You
Yeah.
can't look it up on Google. What do you think that is? And we actually have a lot of books in our library. Let's look something up.
Yeah.
Let's just put our mind in a different mode. And on Saturday night, we reappreciate technology all over again. So every week it has this dual effect where we're excited to go off every week. Every week I'm already 2 days away from my tech Shabbat. I'm already thinking about it now.
Oh, I love that.
And I race towards it, turning it off, lovely meal, beautiful day, rejuvenated. And then I'm psyched to be back on. I mean, I'm like, wow, I live in the 21st century and we're living in a pandemic, but there's the internet, so I can stay connected. And that's such a gift. So I'm not anti-tech at all. I'm just anti-tech 24/7. And I don't want to live in a world that leaves no room for reflection or perspective.
Yeah.
And these tools are designed to make us so reactive. We don't ever take a beat. We're just respond, text, this, that, retweet. I mean, Twitter just made it so you actually have to read the article now because people don't even read it. They're just like, see a headline, they just retweet it. And it's like, I think it's just like, how can we just have one day of the 7 where you're not in that crazy mode, which is not healthy.
Yeah. And I'd love to. I mean, it's not healthy, and it's replacing depth with a quantity of shallow that can never make up for depth.
Yeah. And they even say like we're reading more than ever, but we're skimming. We're skim reading. There's certain things that I save for Saturday. Like somebody sends me an article. I'm like, oh, that's looks so good. I'm going to print it out and I leave it on the table for Saturday. Or there's certain books that I only read on Saturday. I just read so differently without the phone. I mean, when the phone's right there, there's research I cite in the book. And this, of course, happened a lot more before the pandemic, when you'd have a meal with someone, you go to a restaurant and everyone would put their phones on the table, or you're at your office and you'd have your phone on your desk. That there's research that just by seeing a phone off face down, you will not be as attentive to the conversation because you're like, when is it gonna buzz? And so I have them completely out of sight, out of mind the whole day. And I think differently without the magnetic pull of this phone.
Yep. Yeah. Like I could be missing something right now, right? The answer is here. I just have to pick it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're talking so much about Shabbat. We're talking so much about your observance of Shabbat. I don't know if observance of Shabbat is the right language for you.
I say that sometimes.
And I have questions about that. I want to hear more about the religious side of this experience for you, to the extent that there is one. But first, just can you walk us through a sundown to sundown?
Yeah.
Well, it really I used to say the TikTok, but you can't say TikTok anymore because that's a web service that I don't actually understand.
I don't understand either.
Yeah.
It starts Friday morning for me. So, and during the pandemic, I've been baking challah. You're all invited. We're having a post-election Zoom challah bake on November 6th that I'll put in the chat later.
Terrific. But and we'll send this out to everybody as well.
Yeah. So, Friday morning, I let the yeast rise. I put my hand in dough with my daughters, and just making dough that you have to wait all day for it to rise is a wonderful beginning of the practice. So, and we clean the house. We always have people over. We make a beautiful meal. My husband makes a great roast chicken. We make the same meal. There's no guesswork. It's not like, what are we going to make? It's like, I'm on challah with my girls. Ken's on roast chicken. I make the salad. The girls are on appetizers, and we do a seasonable vegetable. It's this, and we have cookie dough ice cream. We don't think about what we're cooking because it's like, people ask if they can bring something. No, we got it down.
Wow.
So it actually, some people get stressed having a dinner party. That's pretty much what we're having every week, is a dinner party with Shabbat. Make the same meal, they come, the screens are off. It's such an incredible conversation. And a lot of people say, well, how do you get your kids? But a lot of times we invite, like this Friday, we have my older daughter's, one of her best friends' families coming over. So a lot of times we'll invite our kids to invite their families over. And that really makes it so it's not just like an adult dinner, but it's family, it's friends, and it's getting to know the families of friends. And then, the screens are off, and then I usually go to sleep early because I'm usually so exhausted by the week. And I do get up early to write and to think. And then we do a lot of hanging out, but the day is always like a combination of things we're wanting to do that we didn't have time to do during the week. And that could be nothing, but it's board games, it's reading. It's actually funny. I was talking to you earlier as people getting on, because I think the pandemic in some way kind of forced people into a Shabbat-like mentality, because we had to, at the beginning, had to get back to basics, but we do that every week. And the way my kids describe it is it's like a vacation. it feels like a deep vacation every week, because
Yeah.
my older daughter will say, we don't let them do homework. That's totally off the table. And they're not being social. On social is Friday night, family social. Saturday is family day. And I'll tell you, I grew up with family day, and I have seen it really dissipate because there's so many sports games and people are running around. Like, it's kind of crazy. And, you know, we have done tech Shabbats with 2 kids in soccer. We would just like write out on a piece of paper with my black Sharpie where we had to be. But mostly Saturday is a family day or a chill day, or we'll have people over, but without the phone. We'll be like, we'll meet you there. And there's no texting a million times. I'm parking, I'm late, I'm around the corner. Just nothing. We'll just like see you at 2.
Yeah.
Hope you get there.
Yeah.
And we have a landline, I should say. A lot of people say, what about during the pandemic? And we have a landline because I live, you know, which they're like $12 a month. They're really good to have for emergencies, and they're great for tech Shabbat. So if anyone really needed to reach us, they could call us on that. And in 11 years, you know how many times somebody's ever had to emergency get in touch with us? 0.
No
Um,
kidding.
yeah, but and my husband, he's my Shabbos goy. He likes to have the phone just on airplane mode in his pocket, and he feels better just looking at it maybe twice a day, just in case. He's much more of a worrier. I'm not. I don't like to look at it at all, but he's the one, if we're really lost somewhere, he'll look at it. But generally they're just out of sight. We don't watch TV. We just get very analog for a day. We listen to records on a record player. Sometimes we use Alexa if we're cooking and we listen to music, but it's no screens.
Yeah.
And then at 5 o'clock on Saturday, the kids are psyched to go back online. We usually go on a date, whatever that means in the pandemic. We go upstairs. It's a beautiful rhythm to the week. And then my older daughter, if she wants to go out with her friends, she'll go out on Saturday night. So it really, the beauty, and I think the brilliance of Shabbat is that before Shabbat, there was no day off. And it creates this beautiful rhythm to the week and a coming together as a family or with friends, and what happened during the week. We talk about everything in a week's term at the conversation. Um, and it just creates a real order and beauty. And so many people during the pandemic were saying like the pandemic killed the weekend, everything blurs together. I don't ever feel that way. I always feel like I'm working, and then Friday I cool down. Saturday I really replenish and I'm with family, and then I feel very productive. I mean, my husband will say Sunday is his most productive day because his brain has gotten a full day of rest. I don't think anyone gives their brains a full day of rest anymore. And I made a lot of films about neuroscience, and my father wrote and operated on the brain. So I was kind of brought up with it. My mom was a psychologist. We are overstimulating our brains. Our brains were not designed to be attentive and responsive and reactive all the time the way we're living right now. And I think we're seeing the effects, and there's a big mental health issue in our country and our world. And you feel like you're so connected, but nothing replaces that, you know, the connection a lot of us can't have right now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Again, it's, you know, shallows never add up to depths, right?
Right.
And we're kind of drowning in these you know, very light connections, and the, you know, life's base notes are not really coming through. You know, it's interesting. You have a landline. It's almost to make sure, and you're paying $12 a month for the privilege, to make sure you don't miss anything big. And I think one of the things that might be keeping a lot of people from fully embracing this idea of tech Shabbat. I mean, it is something that I hear a lot of people talk about. I would love to do that, but I don't want to miss something. I would love to do that, but what if someone calls? We're worried about FOMO. So over the past 10 years, even though no one's used the landline, can you tell us about something that you did miss on a Shabbat that you came to find out later? What should we be worried about? What should we be missing?
Well, I guess I would just love for everyone to remember what the world was like before the cell phone. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we really didn't need to know. I mean, I'm reading the news, like, you don't want to know how many times I'm reading the news every day. It's not, I think it was probably much healthier when, you know, my dad used to read the newspaper at 5 or 6 when he got home from work, and that was it. I'm checking the news right now like 10 times a day. It's gotten bad again because the election's so close, but there isn't, I think I mean, trust me, I have heard, I couldn't do this because I'm a doctor or whatever. My father was like an emergency room surgeon, and even he used to be on call with another doctor on the weekends. Like they'd switch off.
Yeah.
And, you know, journalists, oh my God, if I miss a beat, like I would just say that the biggest thing I'd say is you will be able to contribute better at your job, to your family, to your friends, if you truly take a day off. That if
Mm.
you're just like going, 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 you can't miss anything. And I think it's the sense that, you know, it's just important to remember that we lived before all these devices kept us up to every second date on everything. And it's actually good. I mean, it's interesting. My daughter will say it's the day she has no FOMO because we're not seeing on Instagram and all these things what people are doing. You're just like, you're not focused on anyone else. You're just like, this is what I'm doing. And I'm right here, which is the sad part about the internet is that, you know, you're never really present. Everyone's kind of everywhere and nowhere. And I think we need to remember, and I think a lot of what Shabbat is about is presence. And I think we've forgotten so much how to do that.
You know, you said it, I think, in a way that I had not thought of before, that we are spending so much of our lives engaging with other people, reading about other people, learning about what
Yeah.
others are doing, and and it takes away, because time is finite, of the time we used to spend, and you talked about this in your book, in our own heads, in our own thoughts,
Hmm.
in that kind of self-reflective state, that, you know, as soon as we shut off the switches, as soon as we shut off the screens, I mean, that drive just kind of bursts into our consciousness,
Yeah.
but we never give ourselves a space to do that. We're always reading about other people.
Right. That's, I'm actually, the way you just framed it, it's like we're letting the whole world into our brains all the time. And like be kinder to your brain. Like your brain should not be exposed to every stressful thing or everything happening all the time. And actually, the magic happens in your brain when you just let it not get new input. It's got so much input.
Yeah.
We're just stuffing ourselves with input with all the screens. And if you turn it off, all these magical things happen. You have new ideas. I just find like, you know, as a creative filmmaker, I'm always trying to figure out how am I get in the most creative state. And it's always when I turn off the screens. And
Always.
I just took my puppy for a walk, and, you know, I think there was a time where, you know, and I see people walking, they're listening to a podcast, they're listening to a book, they're on the phone, they're optimizing every second. And I think there's one chapter in the book where I talked about your brain actually needs 2 hours of silence a day to rejuvenate the cells in the hippocampus. And now, once read that research, I get in the shower, I'm like, don't turn on the news. I'm just doing the dishes. I'm like, just do the dishes.
Yeah.
Like, just take a shower, just take a
Yeah.
walk. And you will feel so much better because you're just kind of, you get to process, you're digesting all that's happened. And we're living in a state where we're just digesting, reacting, distracted. And even for our kids, like, I think it really teaches them to be comfortable being by yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really valuable skill that if you just always have that phone and you're looking at TikTok and Instagram and everyone else, just like you said, it's like you can't exist. I mean, we all need other people, but the way that the internet presents the other people is in this shallow way. And really, you need to be able to be comfortable with yourself. You need to be able to hear yourself think. And when you are with other people, which is like so exciting now during COVID, when you're really with other people at a distance, be present with them. I mean, I hope one of the things that comes out of this experience is that we're going to be so starved for human contact that we'll put the screens away when we're with someone.
Please, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
nice, right? Wouldn't that be incredible? And it does feel like we are in starvation mode now,
Yeah.
and that human contact is just something that we're all so desperately craving. And yes, right, could we be so blessed with that silver lining at the end of this, to have just
Yeah.
more awareness that there will come a time when we will have the choice to engage with other people or
Yeah.
not, and that decision's ultimately ours. You know, now it's not, but God willing, one day soon. um you know, you say left, right, and sideways that you are a cultural Jew, and I'm going to believe you because I believe you. You also you write like a religious person,
You're not
and
the first rabbis that said that to me.
Oh, really? I mean, you do. When you talk about the infinite and immortality and the touch points that last so far beyond the years that we've been given. This is how rabbis speak. Um, and I'm wondering. I'm not going to ask you to redefine yourself, even though my goodness, you are a cultural Jew and but I'd love to hear about the Shabbat experience itself for you and what you created as a cultural Jew, because it reads like a religious experience. And I'm wondering,
It is. That's so funny. See, maybe it's just words have such power. And also, I feel like some words, a lot of my issues growing up, and actually my Reform temple, um, was all the patriarchal language. Like
Yeah.
there was not a woman mentioned. It felt like the stories were self-propagating. I mean, if now I feel like people are talking about Miriam and they're like, we always got Esther perform, but as a feminist, my biggest issues with Judaism, because I love being Jewish,
Yeah.
but it was in a lot of the language. And um, so I really pushed against it. I mean, and I think you're calling me out in a good way because
I'm making an observation. It is an
well, but
observation.
I think it's a good point because I certainly being on tour with this book and um, the closest definition that's spoken to me was when Einstein kept getting asked, "Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?" And he's like, I have a humility and awe for that which I don't understand."
Yeah.
And I would say that's true, but I do agree with what you said that these Shabbats are kind of a religious experience because they're so radical and beautiful, and I feel like I come back to myself and I understand how I'm connected to this larger world every week. And I think
Wow.
that's one of the beauties of Shabbat. I think maybe I went so far in the other way because I felt like Shabbat, a full day of Shabbat, was like owned by the Orthodox Jews.
Yeah.
And I almost felt like that's why I called the book 24/6, is I wanted to like completely get to the empirical core of the idea of one day off and remove it from the religion to free it for everyone who might not even look at it if it's religious. And I have a lot of Jewish friends who the touch of religion will just turn them away. And I didn't want them to be turned away from the idea, which is such a powerful idea. So I think you're probably right that I have gone so far over to kind of invite more people in
Yeah.
that might get turned off by the religion part.
It's I was a Hillel rabbi. This is not my own joke. This is a joke that one of the Hillel rabbis I used to interact with once told me. He said, I meet a Catholic and they're a Catholic. I meet a Muslim, they're a Muslim. I meet an atheist and they're a Jew. Right. And
Wait, I thought you were gonna tell my other favorite joke. Can
yeah.
I tell you mine?
Yeah.
That's really good. That this family, they moved to Chicago. The only good school is a private school. And they're like, okay, and it's a Catholic private school. Okay, it's the only good school around. So they send their daughter there. And she comes home. She's like, "Mommy, Daddy, I learned about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost." And the parents grab her by the shoulders and they're like, "Listen, we're Jewish and there's only one God and we don't believe in him."
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. But it is so interesting, and and one of the reasons why I love your book and why I think it speaks to so many people is, we live in an age, and the non-traditionalist Christians I know and admire, say the same thing, where we have given people who are very different from us the power to define what religion should mean.
Hmm.
But when I read your book, Tiffany, I'm reading a Shabbat manifesto for people who are not Orthodox,
Hmm.
right? And they're very religious people. I would say myself, and I put you in this camp, who identify deeply with things that are not tangible and immediately perceivable in this world, whether you call that religion or something else. For whom your book represents a way of religious life right? A way that that exists outside of the capitalist enterprise, that exists outside of people wanting or demanding or needing something from you. It reads to me like orthodox spirituality, but who's to say that they have the monopoly on what spirituality should be?
That's fascinating. I mean, I'm very open to what you're saying. I think you're right. I think now, I got interviewed for the Humanistic Judaism magazine, and I got to put in all in one place my thoughts about all of this.
Mm.
But I did have a rabbi, the rabbi who married my husband and I. This was like 5 years into Shabbat, and she's like, "You're the most religious, non-religious person I know."
That's right.
But
That's
I think I understand the power of this boundary. That the exciting thing about technology in the early days of the Webby Awards and just technology in general is that it erased boundaries. You could work from anywhere. You don't know what country someone's in. You don't know where they are in.
Yeah.
But the problem is it erased so many boundaries, and boundaries aren't bad. Boundaries boundaries can be liberating, and that's one of the biggest things I learned. And I think religion and social structures and social contracts, they create order to ultimately free you. And I think we think we're free because we're like, oh, I can be online all the time, and I'm online and I'm just sucking every bit of information, and I'm connected to the network. But I think it swallowed everyone whole.
Yeah.
And that to go back to this very ancient idea of this boundary of time and Heschel's temple and palace and time, it's such a beautiful idea. And it's in the face of this of technology that's erased every boundary, and everyone has to be on all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to live that way. And to go back to something so ancient, and actually, if you read the readings of like, if you talk to Orthodox Jews, they have all these loopholes and things,
Sure.
and I think that for me, the screen, it's like a conduit to everything. It's like this thing is like, it is social, but it's work, it's stress. It's like you pick it up and everything is suddenly
Everything's
with
there.
you.
Yeah.
And how do you create a boundary so you're with yourself, so you're with your husband or wife, you're with your kids, you're with your dog, you're just with nature. Don't bring the whole world with you all the time. It's not a good, and it's hard because I think what I found with the book, there's a lot of people that now do tech Shabbat, but some people, they say, I read your book and it just helped me be more intentional, because I talk about all these strategies I do the other 6 days. I do all these interventions because it's so addictive and alluring and wonderful a lot of times. But I bet you that if you created little boundaries and spaces for when you wake up, before you go to bed without that phone, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to sleep a lot better. You're going to feel like you've regained yourself. I mean, it's the way I feel.
Can you? I realize that I definitely want to hear. I know that there are a lot of people on this conversation who might have questions for you, and I have many more. but one thing before we move on to our Q&A section of tonight, and you just referenced this, that there's the tech Shabbat, right? There's the one day out of seven that and this is what I call, Judaism does this well, right? We separate and we sanctify, right? We separate time, we sanctify it. We separate even food, and we sanctify it. How we love our significant others, right? They're not just any other people. We separate them from the rest of the world. We sanctify them. That in a way that's holy work. And I'm wondering what this kind of technology mindfulness looks like for you outside of your tech Shabbat.
Yeah, well, I at dinner, so my husband's a professor, he's teaching, the girls are on Zooms. It's like, even though it's not pre-COVID, it's still everyone's off in their own world.
Yeah.
But dinner, we eat together and there's no screens. And dinner only lasts for like a half an hour. We're not talking a lot. If your whole day is like 30 minutes, there's no screens at the table. The other big one that I did, starting with the last election, is I was waking up and looking at the New York Times app, getting super stressed. And I made a pact with myself after the 2016 election. I don't want to start my day looking at the news. That is the outside world telling me everything's going on, but it's not me setting the tone for the day.
Yeah.
So I I have my phone as my alarm clock, but it's on airplane mode. And I go get my coffee and I pull out this 5-minute journal. It just asks me like 3 things I'm grateful for. You should always write something different. Don't write the same thing, and all the research about gratitude. And then 3 things I hope for the day. So I have to think about my day. This all takes like 10 minutes as I'm waking up. And then I go to my phone. And then at the end of the day, I go back to this journal. So I'm not looking at my phone before I go to sleep too. And what are 3 amazing things that happened that day? They're often very different than what I thought were going to be great, which is so wonderful. And then at the final line, it says, what's one thing you wish you did differently? A little bit of reflection. So every day I start and end the day with myself.
Yeah.
And, a couple weeks ago, the phone was near me and I thought, I'm just going to check one. And it was a stressful email and I slept poorly. Whenever I let the phone end my day, I don't sleep as well. And I'm always trying to sleep better. I don't sleep that well lately. So those are, and I have a whole list of things I do. I told you I have this big notepad of like,
I love
that.
that.
And I have a lot of white space around it. See, I think we need more white space.
That's right.
Tech
More
Shabbat
margin.
Tech Shabbat is about white space. Poetry is like just a few words on the page. We're so jam-packed. There's no poetry in our lives. I like to specifically write in a very big pad.
That's
the,
right.
The things I have that day and the thing that really, what do I really need to get done today?
Yeah.
And so I talk about all those things because I think the Tech Shabbat has been the best thing I've ever done in my life as a practice. But during the week, it's actually harder during the week to stick to things because it's always right near you. Which one's right there? I find that the boundary of having it all away is just much easier for me.
Yeah. It is a mindset for one day a week that defines the rest of the week itself. I mean, I remember when my wife and I lived in Israel, it's a very different chapter in our lives. The entire country revolves around Shabbat.
Yeah.
You're either talking about what you did over Shabbat, or really come Tuesday, Wednesday, you're creating your guest list and
exactly. It's like but it's so wonderful because it's like you have a built-in social wonder. Like whenever we meet someone interesting, like I wish you lived near me. I'd have you and your wife over for Shabbat.
When your daughter comes to Washington.
Okay, well, it's such a fun thing. Like we meet someone cool, we're like, oh, we should invite them over for Shabbat. Like we have a baked-in dinner party every week, and it's like, oh, they'd be great to come over for Shabbat. We'll have time to get to know them, and it is the way you just described when you live in Israel is the way we live. We're leading up to this wonderful social thing and then quiet and like introspection, and then it's over and then I'm looking forward to it again. But it's like this whole like all week long. It's wonderful.
That's exactly right. Oh my goodness.
How long were you in Israel for?
We were there for a year in 2006. Yeah. So it was our first year of marriage. We got married very young, right out of college, and it was like a year-long honeymoon. I mean, but in this immersive, sacred space.
We went to Israel on our honeymoon.
Oh my
husband and I. Wait, I'm gonna get my charger because my computer. Wait 1 second.
That's just fine. So let me explain as Tiffany sets up her computer. We're going to take the next few minutes. I know that maybe many of you have not read the book yet, although I highly recommend it. But to participate in this conversation that we are having, as you think about your own Shabbat practice, as you aspire towards a new Shabbat practice, what questions might you have for our teacher this evening, who has paved so much ground for us to walk? You are free to unmute yourself and to share.
Oh, cool.
And if we could go to gallery view or just remove the spotlights for a moment, or at least move.
Nice. Hi, everyone. Oh, hi, Samuel. Do you have a question?
Hi. So you have a tradition for ending Shabbat?
That's a really good question. We don't do a formal Havdalah. We don't. And I feel like I'm building up to that because whenever I've done Havdalah, it's so beautiful, but we don't wait until the sun sets. We really don't. Like it's, especially with our kids, and we don't, but I like the idea of that. I could see bringing that in. I mean, I find that every time I bring a new ritual into my life gets better. That rituals commemorate moments, they have you look forward to things. So I could see bringing that in, but right now, no. Do you do a Havdalah?
I'm thinking about it.
Thinking about it.
I love the word Havdalah. It's so fun to say, like Havdalah.
Like a hello.
And it's
Goodbye.
got a good rhythm.
Well, thank you, Sam. And others, you're free to unmute yourselves and to ask away.
Elena, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah. What non-screen hobbies have you like discovered or embraced because of this?
Thank you. A lot. Because the truth is that when the screens are there, it's so hard to get into something. But I'm gonna we're in my living room, so I'm gonna get this one. So this is like the simplest instrument to play. It's a ukulele, and about 4 years into the Tech Shabbat, my whole family started having a ukulele teacher come over on Saturdays and just teach us how to play the ukulele. Now the kids are like onto electric guitar. My other daughter's into acoustic. I still play the ukulele. That's one. The other thing, and this is from the pandemic, and I just wrote a whole essay about what I learned from it, is my family and I started surfing. We're Californians, we never surfed. And then the pandemic, it was like, what was there to do? And on Tech Shabbat, we surfed. We learned how to do that. We cook a lot. Like during the week, I am just like a working mom juggling a million things. We always make a nice Friday meal, the same meal every Friday, but Saturday I'll experiment. And I love to redo art. I love doing art. I just don't have the time. I think that's the way our modern society is that we'll do it for a second and then you think of something and you're on your phone and then you're totally off the project, right? So it just like creates this amazing space to actually do something. We go on a lot of walks in nature and just longer than you would. You don't have to rush somewhere. And that's another thing is we don't make a lot of plans on Saturday. So Saturday, we don't realize how, we just don't, we're not like rushed. And, but yeah, there's been a lot of fun things that only happen on Shabbat for sure. Yeah. I have a whole list in the back of the book of fun things to do without screens by age. And it was so funny when I was writing it because I was kind of joking, but I think people forgot it's a big section, like what used to bring you joy when you were young. And joy is important, and uninterrupted joy. I think that's why I laugh so much on Friday nights is that there's nothing like sometimes I'll laugh about something and sometimes I'll laugh about something on the phone, but then you're quickly interrupted. It kind of just lets you go with whatever you're experiencing instead of, oh wait, what's the fun? Or like even at Shabbat dinners, when you're with a group of people and there's that awkward moment and then everyone pulls out their phone. Yes. And I always think of it like a yawn, like one person does it and you suddenly give permission to the whole group to disconnect. And at Shabbat dinners, that never happens. We're like in it. We're in the conversation. We're laughing. We're having fun. It's deep. It's meaningful. We're talking about the week. We're talking about politics. But it's like, it's such a meaningful conversation. It's the most meaningful conversation I have all week, for sure. Yay, Andrew likes the ukulele. Do you play?
Andrew's our friend from Hawaii.
Oh, Andrew, I'm learning. I'm learning the song "Landslide" by Stevie Nicks because I want a landslide next week. So I'm playing it, just hoping that we get a. I know I'm probably not supposed to be political.
You live in California, and there are landslides in California.
No, I want a landslide in the election.
Are there other people who have questions for our author?
Yes.
Please.
Hi, Anita.
Anita, hello. Hi.
I just love the beautiful language. You're so creative in your words. It's so beautiful to hear how you express yourself, your thoughts, your feelings. It's very inspiring. I would like to ask you, do you think of God within yourself? Because you say you have given yourself this category of non-religious, but I just felt that it's so religious when you speak. At least Rabbi Miller has given us so many ideas about God, within us. Does this come about that you think of yourself as getting into the wellspring of ideas within yourself during this time of Shabbat?
Well, that's interesting. I want to hear Rabbi Miller's sermons about it, because I do think how we define God is God listening, being able to hear this inner voice and being connected. Then yes, that's my day that I tap into that. And I feel like during the week, everything's so noisy. It's hard to think. It's hard to really think and process during the week because I'm reacting and I'm, like everyone, I'm just trying to process everything that's happening. So yeah, I think, again, going back to language of, I think I call it like inner voice. Like even in the book, I lost my father, but I feel so connected to him. I mean, he's with me all the time. What do you call that? I don't know. I mean, I feel like I am present enough to hear his advice he keeps saying in my ear, even though he's physically not here. So I think I do think that the words are probably mostly what I have issue with, not the ideas behind the words.
Yeah.
The language within your ideas. It's interesting that it's input.
It's in there.
Yeah. Language that's within your ears. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
God's language, do you think?
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, and Tiffany, as a rabbi, I struggle with this because there's, to put it bluntly, there's no way to talk about God without sounding like an idiot. And or at least really trying hard not to. And so what I've found in my own personal life, I'll reflect on myself, and I know others would agree with this, is that we'd rather sound smart and rational and secure in our own thinking, which is what we're paid to do for the 6 days of the week, than step out on a ledge and talk about something that is not never designed to be on such solid footing. God talk is hard,
it is. It's and I think as like, somebody that, I mean, I think the reason I have so much neuroscience and I have so many like scientific ideas to back up these feelings that are so intrinsic to the experience is to rationalize this ineffable. But I do feel like there are bad associations with being so religious that you don't believe in science or evolution or so many things. I mean, even like the concept of Shabbat is the seventh day of rest, of like God created the world. Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that story. And yet I believe that Jews came up with this story that had baked into it one of the most brilliant ideas of all time. So
yeah, I mean, and you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things that I think your book highlights, I think, perfectly, which is that there are different kinds of truth, right? There are things that are historically true. There are things that your husband is a robotic professor. There are things that are in the realm of physics true. Gravity is true, and history is true, and spirituality has its own parallel truth that is every bit as real as historical truth, but parallel, right? It's not intersecting truth. It's a parallel truth that can thrive in its own realm of truth. And I think one of the things that you draw out of that spiritual truth is we were not meant to produce 7 days a week.
Right. And we lived in, like, our whole society is like produce, create, optimize. And I don't want to live in that world. And I'm a very productive person, but I actually realized that I'm much more productive if I really don't do anything. Like, I had a very busy week, and the book came out in paperback last week. I released a film yesterday. I knew, and you would have thought if you saw my to-do list, there's no way she's taking a day off. I totally took a day off.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to take that day. My to-do list was like beyond, oh my gosh, I'm taking a day off.
Yeah.
And I think it's so counter to this kind of modern capitalistic society, more. And, that's not necessarily better.
Yeah. And even more than that, when I read about how this embrace of sacred tradition has been a part of your life and your family's life, it's also it's not just about you. You are more present, for yourself, obviously, but as a wife, as a mother, as a creative thinker and contributor to the world. But this is not just about how you are moving through the world in a better way, but about how you bring other people along with you. And I'm the father of two young kids. I interact with parents all the time. And I'll admit to doing this too. You know, we're in front of our phones when the most sacred part of your life is right there in front of you.
Right.
And one of the things that this tech Shabbat and Shabbat awareness that emanates from it can bring is not just for you, but so you are more you for the people who need you.
That's right.
And there's that ripple. I know that ripple is a part of your brand, but there's this ripple effect from this sacred day.
Yeah, like you'll bring so much more. And you know, my daughter's about to leave for college soon, and I'm so glad I have the Shabbats. Shabbats are all the best memories, like when the phones are down and we're really with each other. And even if during the week I feel like we're all over the place, I'm always like, oh, we get this day, and then it all comes back together. And so much of parenting is modeling behavior, so it's like it's a whole, everyone's doing it, and that's a big part of it. It's not like the parents are doing something and they're telling the kids to do something. It's like, we're all just going to figure this out. It's like an experiment that we're all going to do together, and that makes it more fun too.
Exactly right. And it's something that has been the anchor for your family for a very long time. And I hope I know we're coming down to the hour, but you know, you have a daughter going off to college, and I wonder and I pray that some of the awareness that is now in her spiritual DNA.
She says that when she was talking to their counselor, she's like, I really want to go to a college where I can keep doing tech Shabbat. And I was like, yes. I'm like, don't act too excited.
My alma mater is Brandeis University, right?
Well, I think it was just like, she knows this is like a tool. It's also a tool. It's a spiritual practice. It's also a tool to live in a really powerful way.
Of the many powerful sections of your book, I thought the first chapter was going to be the best chapter, and they got better from there. The last chapter resonated with me. I think it was certainly your most spiritual writing, and it ended with this crescendo, with this reflection that is a poem that is an encapsulation of the entire book itself. And Tiffany, I would love for you to share with us this reflection as we move into what is going to be a wild roller coaster of a week for us with everything coming up. And as you share this reading, you know, one of the things that we, if we were to look from the outside into Shabbat observant people, we see people who have to give up so much. They can't do this. They can't do that. There's so many options that are closed off to them. But one of the things that 24/6 shows is that you are giving up small things for so much more. And I know your poem doesn't have a title, but if I were to title it, it would be More, because this giving up brings the gift of life that nothing else except for those small sacrifices could let space in for. And so we're going to do, if I could ask you to read this poem, and then I know that you're working on a project that I would love to hear more about.
Well, first of all, this has been so much fun, Aaron. I wish I could experience. Next time I'm in DC, I'm gonna experience one of your services, because
I'd love to have you.
I love the way you're talking about it, because it's interesting. You know, it's yes, I've really enjoyed this, and I will set up this section that. And actually, I was just telling, my aunt just lost her partner of many years, and I was explaining to her last weekend when it happened that whenever I do something I love, that my dad used to love, I think he's with me. And just to set up this part of the book is that he was this brilliant man, and on the last moments of his life, he lost his ability to speak, and that was very powerful also, because we were so close, and I felt like he was telling me so much just with his eyes. So this is, that's the last section. Someone once told me, whenever you're doing something that the person you lost loved to do, you bring them back. So while I write this book in the darkness of 5 a.m., and when my dad used to also write, when I clap through tears at the end of a fantastic film in a packed theater, when I thrust my own finger in the air and say tradition while eating a bagel, eggs, and cream cheese, or appreciating the family sitting around the table, all the things he loved, he's with me. And if I have the privilege of living long enough to see my hair turn gray, and if I have the experience, the joy of having grandchildren that I can hold in my sun-spotted hands, And if on my final days, as my body is shutting down, I lose my ability to speak with only my eye contact left, I hope that Ken, Odessa, Bluma, my brother, sister, best friends, and grandchildren are all gathered around me, leaning into me close enough to hear what my eyes are saying. Here's what they would try to convey. More presence, more appreciating, more compassion, more laughing, more dancing, more making, more kneading dough, more mistakes, more I'm sorry, more I forgive you, more eye contact, more hugs, more daydreaming, more silence, more eating together at the table, more reading, more journaling, more taking a beat, more thinking in slow motion, more rituals, more nature, more getting lost, more tend and befriend, more empathy, more joy, more authentic connecting, more looking up, more love. I haven't read that in a while, but I'm glad you had me read that again.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Tiffany, thank you so much. You make Shabbat real for people who may have not considered themselves religious Jews. You sanctify time in a way that we need now more than ever. I'm in no way surprised that your book has reached so many people, and I pray that it reaches many more across religious denominations and religious backgrounds, because now is a time I think we need Tech Shabbat more than ever, and may it bring us the peace we need to navigate the season ahead.
Well, actually, that's a perfect segue to my 2-minute film I just premiered, which I am going to show to all of you. And I will make sure, my puppy is wanting, wait 1 second, that when you send a follow-up, there's a couple of short films I made that I think your community will really enjoy. But I'm going to share this 2-minute film called Dear Voter. Wait 1 second. Multiple people can share. Advanced sharing options.
Do you want me to make you a host?
Yeah, make me a host. There we go. And then, okay, let's see if that worked. Oh, there we go. Cool. Oopsie. Wait, I got to do that again. Wait, I got to do it again because I forgot to do sound. It's so like the making sure the sound is there is such a little button. There we go. Okay. It's 7 months into the pandemic, and we're going into the most important election of our lifetimes.
A lot of people believe that our system is corrupted. A lot of people don't believe that our system works.
What are you most scared of right now?
Dying. Being lonely.
What's going to happen to everyone who doesn't have an income and doesn't have any health care?
I'm afraid we will forget this moment and forget how fragile everything really is.
This might be one of the biggest challenges of our lifetime, but humans have been here before. Like the bubonic plague, 25 million people died. But then after that, the Renaissance happened. A whole new way of thinking. Or the Spanish flu, 1918, 50 million people died. But it seemed to create this opening. Women finally started getting the right to vote shortly after.
Breaking news tonight, the growing calls for justice. Massive protests coast to coast, even more across the globe.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
The universe sent us this big wake-up call that we are actually connected.
We are realizing what has been going so wrong for so long and what we need to change to go forward.
And now here we are. Our democracy is on the line. Your vote represents who do we want to be moving forward as individuals, as our country, and as our world.
It's in these moments of upheaval when we have access to the reset buttons.
Our collective future, we are creating that right now.
2020 shouldn't go down as the year we want to forget. 2020 is the year we're finally understanding what matters in a whole new way. There it is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Tiffany, thank you so much for what you are giving to our people, for what you're giving to religious people of all stripes, for the sanctification of time, for the betterment of our country. You play that song Landslide as much as you need.
I know.
And,
I'm like, I wish I could like whip it out, but it's not tuned. But yeah, Landslide.
No.
We're hoping for a landslide, and I will definitely send you some stuff to share with your beautiful community. And I'm going to come visit you guys someday.
It would be such a joy. Tiffany Shlain, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, everybody, for joining this conversation. I so appreciate seeing you all. Take care, everyone.